Okay, let's talk about inequalities. And this video is not going to focus on how to solve them, but it's going to focus on what they are and what the answers are going to look like when you're dealing with inequalities. So you see here that for an inequality, you can have a solution, a graph, or an interval notation. And all three of those, solution, graph, or interval notation, is going to give you the same information. So let's start with this. This is an equal sign, right? This is an equality. So I don't know if you have ever thought about this, but it's two lines going in exactly the same direction, and they're exactly the same length. So they equal each other. So the first inequality is not equals to. Okay, and this is very similar to, the no smoking sign, right? The line going through it. So this is saying that something does not equal, like x might not equal 7. But then we have these other inequalities which you have seen before. That one, that one, that one, and that one. Okay, now remember we would read this from left to right. So the first one here, right here, this is greater than. And you might see something like 7 is greater than 3. The next one is less than, right? So you might see something like -4 is less than 5. The next one is greater than or equal to, and the next one is less than or equal to. Okay, so these are our inequalities. Now, if we start with a simple example, a basic example like this, x is less than or equal to -7. This is a solution. Okay, so you can look at this and you can say, oh, well, if x is less than or equal to -7, boy, what are the answers there? And the answers would be anything less than or equal to -7. So like -8, -9, -10, -1,000. And even -7 is less than or equal to -7. So this is how we put it as a solution. And then let's look at it as a graph. If I'm going to go and graph, here's my number line. X is less than or equal to -7. I need to find my -7, wherever it might be on the graph, right? In this case, if that's -7, -6, -5, -4, -3, -2, -1, right? Your 0 would be here. But we don't need all that. We only need the important numbers. And we're going to shade everything less than or equal to -7. So which direction is less than? And less than goes to the left, okay? And in your notebook, I want you to shade this all the way back. Make sure I can see it. Some people might like to do something like this and say, oh, well, that's shaded. That's kind of hard to see. But when you do it like this, there's no doubt. Okay, and how far back to the left does it go? Well, it goes all the way back to -infinity. I will always put an infinity or a -infinity on top of the arrows that I shade. Now, what do you put at the -7? So, if you have one of these two, less than or greater than, it would mean that this part right here is not part of the solution. So you would put a parenthesis. But if you have greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to, you're not going to use a parenthesis. You're going to use a bracket like this. Okay, so I know that in the past, you probably did an open circle and a closed circle. Well, we're not going to use that for this class. We're going to use a parenthesis and a bracket. Okay, now here's the quick way to remember it. If you see a line, then your symbol is going to be made up of lines, right? See the line, lines. And if you don't see a line, right, no line, then it's going to be no line. So back to my problem, x is less than or equal to -7. I shade everything less than -7, and at -7, I need to put a bracket. Okay. Okay, so graphically, if I saw just this, I know what that means. That's every number less than -7, all the way back to negative infinity, and it also includes -7. Now there's one more way that I need to show this, and that is through interval notation. And if you graph it correctly, interval notation is going to be pretty easy because all the parts of my graph are just going to come straight down. This is what interval notation looks like. The shaded part is everything from negative infinity to -7, right? It's this interval right here. And where does it stop? It goes all the way from negative infinity to -7. Negative infinity always gets a parenthesis, okay? Because it's not a real number, it's just a concept. So a positive or negative infinity is always going to get a parenthesis. And then the -7, you just look above. If I have a bracket here, I need a bracket here. So this is also one of my answers. And this thing is called interval notation. Okay, we're going to see this on a lot of problems moving forward.